Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I'm your host, Ashley. This is our other host, Michael Duncan. How are you, Michael?
Oh, I'm just dandy. So you never answered my question from earlier, I realized.
What question?
Original buffalo, what does that mean to you? Because I had wings for dinner, and they were much hotter than I intended, and it was painful.
I don't know. I don't eat wings, so that was my answer.
Well, I needed a real answer because I was struggling through my dinner at that point in time. I expected it to be like a medium mild situation.
Right? Like, I would kind of just expect, like, middle. Like, if that's what you told me, like, pretty middle.
That's not what it was, unfortunately. That or they gave me the wrong sauce. Either way, I was very sad.
They might have. Where did you get
I
wings
was in
from?
pain. I don't remember. Whatever Uber Eats suggested.
Oh, there you go. All right. Good to know. I didn't eat dinner. I always forget to eat dinner right before our show.
That doesn't make any sense.
Why?
Our show's at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
Dinner time starts at like around 5 o'clock. Like you can
eat
anywhere between like
I want to
5
get
and
ready
7.
for the show, and
For 3 hours?
5 o'clock's way too early.
For 2 hours?
Sure.
This is bullcrap.
Anyways, welcome back. Just another week hanging out with us. It was another fun week. I feel like this year of football has been so chaotic, so weird. It's just another weird week of football. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Do you feel that way? Like, or is it just that I'm like analyzing things more for the first time?
No, I watched in the same week Gardner Minshew have like 3 incompletions for the Philadelphia Eagles and win. But then also Mac Jones go 2 for 3 and win.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say it was a weird week of football again.
Very weird. I guess we could jump right into it. We're going to talk about those 2 things you mentioned in a little bit, right after our first segment that we always do, the injury report. It is pretty long today. So I'll start out with the 2 Giants quarterbacks. Mike Glennon is now in concussion protocol. I'm seeing reports that he could return for this week. It's still a little bit unknown. But Daniel Jones, who was out this week with a neck injury that he sustained, that he got during the game with the Eagles. He hurt his neck on the second play of the game against the Eagles, finished that game, was out this week. And it was reported that he's seeing specialists this week to kind of understand how serious this injury is. So that's something to keep an eye on. Also something to keep an eye on if Mike Glennon doesn't come back is that Jake Fromm is going to be QB1 for the New York Giants this week.
Jake from State Farm.
Jake from State Farm with a bad O-line. He's literally going to die. And your team, Jalen Hurts, he had that heel ankle issue. Was it ever clarified which one it really was? Ankle, right? Okay. So he ended up not playing this week. I know you and I spoke that he had said to the media last week that he was expecting to play. The team expected him to play. Ended up coming down to it that they were just going to let Gardner Minshew be the starting quarterback for that week, especially with the Eagles on bye this week, so that they could leave Jalen Hurts to heal for 2 weeks instead of 1.
And he is expected to start this week.
Yep. Yep. And Sirianni said that they still expect him to start, be the starter. But Taysom Hill has mallet finger. It's the same injury that Russell Wilson had. It's not as severe, though. That's something to note. They said it's not nearly as bad as Russell Wilson's case. So Taysom Hill is expected to play through it. Yeah. Joe Burrow, another finger thing. He dislocated his pinky. It honestly looked really gross. Like, it was pretty swollen, and he had to have it taped together, and he was in a lot of pain. Like, he was on the sidelines throwing the ball and then screaming. So strange, but he's still expected to play. Zach Taylor said, quote, "There's a chance we limit him early in the week to make sure he doesn't put any pressure on it and be as effective as it can be, but he's still expected to start, and it is not expected to be too serious." Tyrod Taylor has a wrist injury. It's something about the ligaments in his wrist. He's considered week to week. Davis Mills came in for the Texans, who is the secondary quarterback behind Tyrod Taylor. They're still making their decision on who is going to start this week. They're not quite sure. They said the final decision is going to have nothing to do with Tyrod Taylor's wrist injury, just on who they think is best to get them a win. Jordan Love was placed on the COVID list, along with a bunch of other people we'll talk about later. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, haven't said that name in 13 weeks, decided to have surgery on his hip after all. He had that hip subluxation in week 1, right? It was week 1?
Yep.
Yeah, so he's missed all season of football, and he is officially going to miss the rest of this season of football, which is crazy. I don't know that we'll see Ryan Fitzpatrick again.
Yeah, this might also be the end of his career.
Yeah, very sad. Very sad. Our favorite roaming nomad. Running backs. Miles Sanders re-aggravated his ankle injury. He is on bye this week, so I don't have an update if he's going to play or not.
He's expected to play.
Okay, perfect.
He's expected to play after the bye.
Perfect. The most serious injury for this group of running backs is that Kenyon Drake broke his foot in the second quarter of the game this week. He is done for the rest of the season. Kenyon Drake has been pretty outspoken about this injury, about how he got this injury on a tackle, this kind of slide tackle where they rope your feet in under them, almost to it looks like it's almost to cause harm. So he's been pretty outspoken about that, about maybe there needs to be a rule change about that for next year. All the San Francisco running backs, I'm looking at them all on there. There's 3 of them.
Jeff Wilson, Trenton Cannon, Elijah Mitchell.
Yep. Jeff Wilson left the game early with an undisclosed injury. Elijah Mitchell was evaluated for a head injury. I believe it was probably a concussion. It said head injury, but
so he left the game, was brought back in after the game on Monday, started experiencing concussion symptoms. So now he's officially in the concussion protocol, as well as today is officially listed with a knee injury as well.
That knee injury has been a little bit lingering, right? I'm pretty sure he had a lower extremity strain or something a few weeks ago.
He's had a lot of things, unfortunately.
That is true. And the most serious of those 3, though, is Trenton Cannon, who left the game in an ambulance after getting hit a really, really bad hit to the head on opening kickoff. It was honestly really scary. The ambulance came out onto the field, which is not something you see a lot. They were worried that he really wasn't moving that much. He ended up spending the night in the hospital. They said he will be okay, eventually, but he's going to probably take a lot of rest to get over that. It's probably a severe concussion.
Yeah.
Damien Harris was ruled out with a hamstring injury. He's another one that he left the game, came back into the game, had a medium-sized run, and then was ruled out for the rest of the game. So I think they were kind of just testing how bad that hamstring was, and it caused him some harm. Mark Ingram tested positive for COVID. He's likely out for Sunday's game against the Jets. 4 wide receivers. Adam Thielen, it was reported by Tom Pelissero that it was a high ankle sprain that he got in the game. He's expected to miss some time. He's officially ruled out for this week's Thursday Night Football. With the severity of his high ankle sprain, it's usually a 2 to 3 week return time. That's kind of just the very soft guidelines. So he could just miss this week and be back next week, but he could be out 3 weeks. We're not quite sure. Kenny Golladay had a rib injury, but he did return to the game. T. Higgins had what was listed as a mild ankle sprain. Corey Davis is going to have season-ending core muscle surgery, which sounds like it's not a lot of fun.
Sounds painful. I don't even know if I have core muscles, so.
Yeah, I probably don't. I don't work out. But Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were placed on COVID reserve. Keenan Allen was placed on COVID reserve on Monday, and Mike Williams was placed on COVID reserve about 4 hours ago. 3 hours ago, something like that. 4 tight ends. Ryan Griffin from the Jets left the game early. David Njoku was placed on the COVID list. Darren Waller is considered day-to-day after that knee injury that he had on Thanksgiving. He did not play this week. He was ruled out. And the biggest of them all for tight ends is Logan Thomas. During the game, he had something damaged in his knee. It was thought to be and then reported to be a torn ACL and MCL. And then the reports kind of got backtracked with after his MRI. Further testing revealed that it wasn't torn. He's still seeing doctors to kind of better understand the severity of the injury, but he was placed on IR, which means he is probably going to miss the rest of the season. I don't see the Washington football team making a super deep playoff run, so Logan Thomas will probably miss the rest of the season. And for defense, special teams, and O-line, Joey Bosa, the defensive end from the Chargers, had a head injury. He was cleared to return to the game, but he did not play as a precaution. Marlon Humphrey tore his pec. He will miss the rest of the season. Montez Sweat, who has been out from Washington, who has been out with a fractured jaw, was set to return this week, but he now has COVID, so he will not be back this week. And Jamal Adams, you know him, you love him, torn labrum in his shoulder. He has other shoulder damage along with that, and he is going to be out for the rest of the season as well.
And apparently today, Pete Carroll was in a press conference defending that trade and saying it was a very good trade for the Seahawks. Yeah. Which, of course, he has to do, but everyone knows that it was not.
No. It's like he's not been playing horrible, but for the price you paid for him, kind of needs to be doing a lot more than he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's likely a top 5-ish pick, so.
Yeah, exactly. So, good injury news. We didn't have much last week. We have some this week. Juwan James, the offensive tackle from Baltimore, is returning to practice after tearing his Achilles in the offseason when he was with the Broncos. I know it's not a huge return, but I bring it up because coming back from a torn Achilles is not something that's done often, and often, if it is done, is not done highly, effectively. So I think this is something to keep an eye on, especially for people who are expected to return, like Cam Akers, to keep an eye on this returning torn Achilles guy. Richard Sherman is designated to return from IR. He's been out since week 10 with a calf injury. He's obviously on the Bucs. Jair Alexander, the cornerback from the Packers, returned to practice today after his shoulder injury in the first week of October. I believe it was October 3rd. Julio Jones is designated to return from IR, finally. I feel like we haven't said his name in many weeks. And Justin Fields was medically cleared to return to practice, and it is reported that he will start this week. He did have that rib injury, but he is expected to come back.
So some actual good news this week, thankfully.
I know. We had a pretty sad show last week.
But yeah, and that moves us on to some other things that happened in week 13. Just general notes, newsworthy things, events, whatever. We're going to start with the Minshew mania of it all. Gardner Minshew got the start this week for the Philadelphia Eagles because Jalen Hurts obviously was missing with that ankle, and the dude actually looked really, really good. Now, if you were talking to me before the game, that does not surprise me because it was the Jets. And unfortunately, as much as I love getting, really excited about Gardner Minshew, just like everyone does, he's such an easy guy to root for. He's fun to root for. But he played against the Jets. And that's just something that I think we have to remember. Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio, of course, has been ridiculous and insane. And we're already talking about, signing him to a huge contract, of course, calling in, talking about the future face of the franchise. But the reality of the situation is he went 20 for 25. Threw for 242 yards and had 2 touchdowns. Good numbers. He looked good on the field, but the Jets can't cover anyone for crap. No. It's not surprising that he did that because he has decent weapons. Dallas Goedert was a huge weapon, apparently. Devonta Smith did not have a big game, but the running game had another great week, including Miles Sanders looking great before the injury. So it was fun. I am not particularly of the mind that Jalen Hurts is in danger of losing his starting spot anytime soon. But curious to know if you feel any differently.
No, I agree. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be with the Eagles starting for a while. I think there obviously is kinks to work out. So I don't think so. I think there might be a conversation to be had that I could see maybe they move on next year, but I think Jalen Hurts is going to get the year to finish out. We often forget that he's only 16 games in starting, right? I think it's something like that. Along those lines. So he's still a rookie. You know what I mean? He's basically just finishing his rookie season. He hasn't started as many games. He just started a full season now after this week. So I think there's stuff that has to be worked out. But I mean, look at the other quarterbacks who are starting for the first time this year. It happens with everyone. I think he's only going to improve. My favorite part of the Minshew Mania was watching the video with his dad after the game, and then I saw a tweet, and I wish I knew who said it, but it was a tweet that said, "Celebrating with Gardner Minshew is a contact sport," and that I was like, 100%. He literally almost beat his dad up, but it was like a little heartwarming video. It was nice, but yeah, it's Gardner Minshew. I mean, we've seen what Gardner Minshew has to offer. It's not absolutely horrible, but this is not an every week performance from Gardner Minshew.
Yeah, he's a good quarterback. I think he's a really solid backup quarterback who will probably start in stretches throughout the rest of his career, whether due to injury or whatever, and probably win some games. But I think by this point, we already kind of understand what his limitations are, and we know that he's not a starting quarterback. He's not a long-term starting quarterback, and I think the jury is still out on Jalen Hurts. And it's because of that I think the Eagles are going to look at it like that and still try and figure out what they have in Jalen Hurts. But again, it's fun. All the Eagles friends and all the Eagles fans that I know are, they were out there shaving their beards just so they can have a mustache like Gardner Minshew.
Why did you do that?
Because I have to be on camera on Wednesdays with you. And I don't want anyone to see me with a mustache. So,
okay.
For
make some bet down the road that you're going to have to do it.
No. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe the day after Christmas when the Eagles and the Giants play again.
Okay.
But no. I don't think Gardner Minshew will be the starter for very long, but it was fun while it lasted, and it was enjoyable, and it was nice to win in that kind of fashion in a game where it seemed like there was no defense being played whatsoever.
Yeah, well, that is the Jets' defense summed up in a nutshell. Their secondary is absolutely horrible. Like, I hate it because I know those guys are trying, but it's not working. Like, it really isn't. It was like at some point during like week 10, like through 10 weeks, the Jets secondary didn't have an interception. I don't know if they do now. I keep forgetting to look that up, but they don't work. So
it wouldn't shock me.
That's what it is. But my favorite thing about Gardner Minshew, one last thing, is that video that he posted in the offseason. Do you know what I'm talking about? With the eagle?
Yeah.
Yeah. He has like the screeching eagle and like a thing that lays on top of the video of an American flag and some song about like being an American. And I'm pretty sure he posted on Avoid the July. It's my favorite. I could watch that video all the time. I'm going to post it to our Twitter so everyone knows what we're talking about.
He is something else. But keeping the conversation on shocking quarterback performances of the week, we have Mac Jones, who honestly, by this point, I'm sure everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. He played on Monday night. The New England Patriots defeated the Buffalo Bills to take control of the AFC East, and Gardner Minshew got that win by completing 2 passes for 19 yards. Now, you're probably thinking, wow, 2 passes, that's a really bad completion percentage. But no, he only attempted 3. Haha, gotcha. I don't know. Yeah, it was weird, but also
so weird.
If you were watching the game, you're not surprised. Buffalo couldn't stop the run. New England is good at running the ball. Like, that's what they want to do anyway. Mm-hmm. And with that weather, I mean,
you were best not to.
Yeah, I mean, in that weather, if you can out physical the other team, then you're probably going to win, and that's what the Patriots did.
Yeah. I sit here week to week. I live in Massachusetts, so the Patriots games are always on with the people I watch football with. So I sit here week to week, and I'm always like, there's some circumstances where I sit there and I think, Bill, I know Bill loves Mac and Bill trusts Mac, but there are certain situations where you can tell he's just not there with Mac yet, right? Like maybe going for it on a 4th down or something like that, or completing a pass like this, whatever. So during this game, I was like, this is the first time where I feel like it's not like they don't trust him thing. It was just the right game plan. Like, if you see the videos from that game, it was like, obviously, if you know anything about that game or you follow the NFL at all anyone could talk about was the weather. Did you hear about the weather, Duncan? The weather in Buffalo. It was horrible. It was like, no, everyone on Twitter was like, guys, the weather. And everyone was like, did you guys hear about the weather? So everyone heard about the weather, clearly, but
how many times do you think you just said the word weather?
Probably like 7. Okay. So I'll say it one more time. The weather was nuts. It was super windy, super snowy. There were like talks of like, should this game get canceled? Because it was like it was like a snow-nado, basically.
Ew.
The snow ended up stopping, but the field was still very icy, very slick. but the wind was what the big thing was. So it looked like the kickers, like there was like a force field around the goalposts. Like it looked like something like CGI. So I think it was just the right game plan. You don't want a rookie quarterback throwing a ball where, and I know he's very good at throwing the ball, but in intense weather conditions where the ball is slick, the wind, if you throw anything a little bit like a loose spiral, if it's a little bit loose, then that ball was going to go every which way. So I just think it was the right game plan for the Patriots, and it really worked out for them because the Bills genuinely could not stop that run. And one of the reporters, did you hear the thing from the reporter that asked a couple of guys on the Bills defense that was like, aren't you guys like a little embarrassed that like you knew what was coming? Like at one point they ran like 32 run plays in a row. And they were like, aren't you a little embarrassed that you knew what was coming and you still couldn't stop it? And the guys were pissed. I mean, rightfully.
I don't think it's rightfully so. I think it's a very valid question.
It is a valid question, but
everyone and their mother knew. Like, it's like, hey, are you guys embarrassed that you were bad at your job?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they should be pissed, not pissed at the reporter. Like, I, in my opinion, that's the wrong attitude. Like, I get it.
He was like, I'll remember this.
Yeah, like, that's the thing. Like, I get being a little annoyed. But like, I'll remember this. It's like, dude, like, were you watching the game?
Yeah.
They they told you what they were going to do.
Oh, yeah.
And then they did it continuously for 60 minutes.
Yep.
I don't know. Very, very, I don't know, bad attitude. I mean, I get it. You lost. It's a division game, a lot of emotion and all that crap, but like, be better. Be better, then get angry, I guess. The Bills have not been particularly good lately, unfortunately.
No. And this was a big, if they won this, it kind of left the AFC open a little bit. It left their division open a little bit. So very strange. A couple of funny comments about it. Matt Judon at one point said something along the lines of like, we all like gave our all in that game, like except for Mac. He really didn't do much except pass it off. Yeah, that was a good one.
To be fair.
And Kendrick, it is true.
I'm pretty sure I could have played quarterback in that game and gotten away.
You might have been. That might have been the one game. Might have been it.
I mean, as long as I don't get hit, I'd be fine.
Exactly. And with that Patriots O-line held up pretty good. So
yeah.
And then Kendrick Bourne was like, I don't care about your fantasy roster. Like someone asked him about his fantasy stats. I think he got 0 this week or like 0.2 or something like that.
Most people got 0 this week.
Yeah, and he was like, I don't care about your fantasy roster. I care about winning games, and we did that. So a couple of notes. The Patriots are pretty cool this year. I like a lot of the guys on that team, and they all made fun of Mac, but like in a fun way. And I saw a tweet that was like, this is what happens like when you're in a group project and you don't do any of the work. You just show up to like the final presentation, and that was Mac Jones this week.
Absolutely. And he got the win. That's why wins are a quarterback stat, clearly. But anyway, another team that got a win this week that, you know, if the season started last week, this team is a lot better than the Bills. And that is the Detroit Lions. Finally got their first win. They are now 1-10-1 with the last-second touchdown heroics by Jared Goff. It was a fun game. To Amon-Ra St. Brown. And they got their win against the Vikings, I think. I don't know why I'm blanking on that, but the Vikings just keep finding ways to lose.
They really do. If they were going to lose to anyone, it was going to be if they were going to win against anyone, it was going to be the Vikings. If the Vikings were going to lose against anyone, it was going to be the Lions.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to be a Vikings fan, but it's got to feel great to be a Lions fan right now. Right? Dan Campbell was very emotional after the win, of course, as expected. And what makes it even worse is like the Lions had that game won, and then they gave it away. And they got really lucky and were able to get it back. I don't know. They were kind of playing like prevent defense, but not very well. The defense isn't very good, so.
Yeah, so it was very strange. It's kind of like, I don't know, but.
And they did it without one of their best players in DeAndre Swift, too.
They did, I think that's the most surprising fact for me. I knew the Lions were going to win one eventually this year. I didn't think they were going to go winless, but I think the big surprise for me is that DeAndre Swift wasn't there, and they found a way to win that game. Poor DeAndre Swift. He would have loved to win.
Yeah, I'm sure. That sucks.
Right.
I would hate to get paid millions of dollars to lose.
I know.
It's the worst feeling. Speaking of getting paid millions of dollars to lose, Joe Brady was fired. Wow. So he is no longer the Patriots offensive coordinator. This one...
Panthers.
Did I say Patriots?
Yeah.
Whoops. Nope, Panthers. This one shocked me. I
Right?
think this one came out. Was this? Yeah, they're on a bye. They were on a bye this week, so this
Yeah.
came out Sunday morning. I was live with Kyle on Under the Wire,
Yeah.
and like I literally had to like I got the notification from Adam Schefter, and I kind of looked at it. I was like, "Yo, what?"
Mm-hmm.
And like I said it on air, like with Kyle, and we were both just like shocked because Joe Brady has been a name that, again, ever since that beautiful year with LSU, the Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson year, where they won the national championship and had one of the best offenses in college history. Joe Brady has basically been, it's every offseason it's been okay. He's biding his time to be the next Sean McVay, the next offensive dude. And the Panthers have obviously struggled this season. But I still can't say that I saw this coming, nor do I necessarily think that he's the reason.
No, I think it's their fall guy. I think it's kind of like a half-assed attempt to put the blame on someone. Like, you got rid of Cam Newton, you signed Sam Darnold, you brought Cam Newton back. Like, it looks like this offense isn't working on a scheme-wise, but it's really like a personnel thing and a lot of weird decisions over the years that have like not been the best financial decisions, not been the best for the long-term outcome of the team. So I think this is kind of just their attempt to get a fall guy on it, because you could say, look, the offense hasn't been great. We won 3 at the beginning of the season and now we're losing. So I just think it's their attempt to save their own asses.
Yeah, I mean, they lost Christian McCaffrey after that 3-game win streak. That's probably at least partly that's probably an important factor in this. The offense looked a lot better last year with Teddy Bridgewater, and Joe Brady was still the OC.
That's right. I forgot the Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, so it's very odd. It's very interesting. I did read reports that Joe Brady was very focused on a pass-heavy offense, while Matt Rule wanted to more heavily focus on the run game, which I guess if you have Cam Newton, it makes sense. But also you're losing Christian McCaffrey, so... getting the ball in the hands of DJ Moore is probably a good idea. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Joe Brady goes from here, because again, he seemed like he was on that fast track to being the next, young hotness head coach. My guess is he'll probably go back to college. He'll probably take some really hot college job and then maybe work his way back up to the NFL in a couple years. I really have no clue, but very shocking.
I don't know.
Very
I
surprising.
still think he could be a contender for a head coaching job somewhere. I don't think he's completely out just because he got fired. I mean, you can tell that the Panthers organization is kind of in a lot of disarray for coaching in front office right now. So I think there's a possibility that he could still be considered for a head coaching gig, but it probably is a little bit more likely that he goes and takes a good college job. But I don't know. I mean, that's all anyone could talk about for years was Joe Brady this, Joe Brady that. So I'm intrigued. I think he's going to win wherever he goes, to be honest, or do really well wherever he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll see. Or maybe he's not what we thought he was. And he was carried by Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase and Clyde Edwards-Helaire into stardom. But we'll see.
I was talking about that team with someone this week that I was like, this is one of those, that LSU team is one of the ones that you're going to look back on and be like, how was this legal? You know what I mean? Like, how did we allow all of these kids on that team? That LSU team was, it could have very well been that they just, made Joe Brady look good, but
4 offensive first-round picks.
Yeah, it's insane.
So we will see. But that basically wraps up the big storylines from week 13, and we're now going to move forward into week 14, the upcoming week of the NFL. We're going to talk about some games that are probably going to have some sort of impact going forward, especially on the playoff scenarios and different things, and just some matchups that we think are particularly interesting going into this week. Do you want to start us out with the first one?
Yeah, so we'll talk about the first one. It is an NFC East divisional game. It is with the Cowboys against Washington. The Cowboys are coming off of a win against the Saints with a score of 27-17, and Washington is coming off of a win against the Raiders, 17-15. The Cowboys are 8-4, and Washington is 6-6. Cowboys are the favorites in this game. I'll go pull the line though, because I forgot to do that.
Yeah. this is particularly interesting just because the NFC East feels like with every passing week, the Cowboys have not really looked like the team that they have at the beginning of the season. The Eagles felt like they had a chance to catch up in the division and then blew it against the Giants. But yet they still find themselves, both the Eagles and Washington find themselves 2 wins behind the Cowboys.
Yeah.
If Washington wins this week against the Cowboys, they have a chance to be a single game behind the Cowboys in the race at the NFC East, which would open it up even more to the Eagles as well. I mean, it'll separate them all by a maximum of 2 games.
Yep.
And that is really intriguing for
It is.
A division that looked like it was kind of wrapped up early in the season with the Cowboys really just bursting out ahead.
Yeah, the Cowboys are 4-point favorites. Washington is +4. The over-under in this game is 48, which is, I think, a decent number for that game. But yeah, I mean, this Washington team, after going on by week 9, has kind of, I said this, I believe, last week, that this Washington team has been a whole different story. This Washington team looks so much more put together. It looks like they kind of have some idea of Taylor Heineke's strengths and weaknesses, and they're using them. They're learning how to play as a team. They have a good scheme around them, and the Washington football team could very well beat the Cowboys, who have not looked that great recently.
Yeah, I mean, Zeke is hampered. He doesn't look like himself at all. The wide receivers have been a bit of a mess the past few weeks. Dak hasn't really looked like himself. And the defense, with the exception of Michael Parsons, has, they've been average. They've been fine.
Yeah.
With Michael Parsons playing at a possibly defensive player of the year level, which is crazy.
Not even defensive rookie. Like, he's playing at like a defensive player of the year level.
He's been really good. Over 10 sacks already as a rookie that was drafted as a middle linebacker playing defensive end. But you've got Washington. I think the biggest thing for Washington is really the defense has started to look like what they were supposed to be or what people expected from them, at least somewhat. And that's without Chase Young. That's without Montez Sweat. But, they were a fantastic defense last season. They were expected to be a fantastic defense this season because they didn't really lose any pieces. And they were horrible at the beginning of the season, but they finally turned it around and they're starting to look like a competently coached defense and a team, like the team that does have the talent that it has. And I think that's really going to be the decision maker in this one is if Washington can, get pressure on Dak, stop the run game, make Dak beat them, and make it so Taylor Heineke doesn't have to win them the game.
Yeah, that's another one. Taylor Heineke has been looking really good. And it's something I didn't expect from Taylor Heineke. Like, I knew he was good. He, like you said last week, I believe, he went toe-to-toe with Tom Brady. We know Taylor Heineke was good. But he has shown, incredible poise on the field, that he is going through progressions and going through reads really well. He's spreading his balls around the field. They're not just located in one area.
I'm sorry, I'm a child.
He's looked really good. I lost my train of thought a little bit, but he has looked really good. And
there's so many better ways to say that.
There really is, but I didn't think about that.
You were trying to say spreading the ball around the field, not multiple.
His ball.
Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, that's not safe for work. That's not something the NFL could air.
You're gonna have to rate the podcast R now.
No, I'd have to rate the NFL broadcast R if he was spreading his balls around the field.
You can only find that on a couple of websites on cable television. Oh,
fantastic!
So yeah. Yes. I do have a couple interesting team metrics here from PFF. The Washington football team for percent of run plays is at 40% even. The Cowboys are at 37.1% even. Pretty even with percent pass plays. The Cowboys are at 62.9 and Washington is at 60% even. The Washington football team is a little bit better, the EPA per run, and the Cowboys are a little bit better at EPA per pass. But yeah, this I think this is setting up to be probably one of the better games of this week.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if it's going to be a good game, but it's going to be an important game. And I only say that because it's a NFC East game. And They're almost never good. No one enjoys watching them.
Everyone
Especially
enjoyed.
not their...
Everyone enjoyed the Giants Washington primetime.
No,
game.
honestly, you
Everyone
were a
did.
Giants fan, and I don't even think you enjoyed
No,
it.
everyone enjoyed. It was like one of the highest watched
The
regular
Eagles,
season
the
NFL
Eagles
games.
Giants?
No,
The Eagles Giants? Wait, what did you say?
Washington Giants. The one where they
like
kicked the
way
field goal,
early
jumped
in the
off sides
season.
way early in the season. It was one of the highest
was
watched regular
miserable.
season.
That was
Everyone loved
miserable.
it. I don't know what
It's
you're talking
literally
about.
just like,
I don't know
wow,
what
look
you're
at these
talking
guys not understand how football works.
What are you talking about?
They suck.
You're wrong. You're
Very
wrong.
undisciplined.
You're so wrong.
It's like, we won. Oh shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember how it ended. I'm just saying that it's one of the most
Have another
watched.
try.
You're driving me crazy.
Okay,
It's one of
but
the most
just
watched.
saying, okay, most NFC East games no one enjoys watching. Are you telling me you enjoyed Washington versus Philly to end the season last year in primetime?
I had to watch that one, so
but you enjoyed it,
heart
though, right?
attack.
You enjoyed
I'm not
it?
saying I enjoy every NFC East game.
I'm saying most of them are garbage and everyone hates them.
Okay.
All I'm saying, for every single one that is the highest rated or whatever, there's like 12 that are just literal garbage.
Probably.
That looks like incompetent football that both teams forgot how to play. Or Daniel Jones tripping over the 10-yard line. Like,
listen.
But am I wrong? Am I wrong, though?
I'm not saying you're wrong.
We are
I'm
in the
just
worst
saying
division
you're
in
underestimating
football.
some of
You
it.
need No, you need to embrace the worst division in football.
I know we are. I'm not saying we're not.
You're not embracing it enough.
Okay. We are the worst division in football, and I love it.
No, you're not supposed to love it. You're supposed to hate watching the games, even if you win. I've never watched the Eagles, almost never watched the Eagles win a division game and enjoyed it. I've always watched it and been like, wow, we suck. No matter how good we are. In 2017, when we won the Super Bowl, those games still sucked. It took a 61-yarder to beat the Giants in a kicker in his second NFL game.
Yeah.
It's garbage. Awful. Terrible games. Not fun to watch for anyone involved, including the players.
I just think this is going to be a good game. I'm not saying it's going to be the most super fun to watch. I just think it's going to be a good game.
How do you define a good game then, if it's not fun to watch? That's a legitimate question.
I think it's just decent football. I like watching it from a scheme-wise, understanding the plays that they're running. I think it's just going to be smart football, which those NFC East and smart shouldn't be in the same sentence, but I don't know. I just think that the way both of these teams have playing, they're fairly evenly matched, that it's kind of going to be a little bit a battle of wits.
If it's a battle of wits, then we're screwed.
Yeah, you totally are.
They have none.
I know.
There is none.
So it's going to be fun.
There's one combined wit. One team gets to use it every week, and that's it.
Who has it this week?
Not either of these teams. It's probably the Eagles because we're on bye.
Yeah.
We're the team that gets it, but we're on a bye week, which means we're going to come out of our bye stupid.
That? Yeah, I was going to say, why would you choose to use your one
I don't
wit?
get to choose. It's randomly distributed every week.
Okay.
Always
what do we just pick out of a hat?
Yeah, basically, at the beginning of the season. Randomized.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Another 8-4 team faces another 6-6 team for a division, and the 8-4 team has not looked particularly good, while the 6-6 team has looked slightly better as of late, and that is the Baltimore Ravens versus I almost said the Baltimore Browns as well, which is honestly I kind of like that a little bit better. But the Cleveland Browns at 6-6. The Ravens are coming off of a close loss to the Steelers last week, and the Browns are coming off of their bye week, hopefully getting a little bit healthier. Particularly in the Baker Mayfield category.
The Browns are 2.5-point favorites.
That is interesting. I did not realize they were favorites. I'm not overly shocked with the way Lamar
all of these
Jackson
lines that I'll pull from are from FanDuel.
Lamar Jackson has not looked good lately. He has one touchdown in each of his last 3 games, including missing week 11 in Chicago. He threw 4 interceptions against Cleveland 2 weeks ago. One against Pittsburgh last week, and then one against Miami in week 10. He has not thrown for over 253 yards. It's stupid, but in that stretch of time, and it looks like he's just making really bad decisions out there.
That's it. Yep, that's exactly what it is. Or at least what it looks like. That's what I was going to say when you were done talking. Was that it just looks like he is not playing smart. It's stupid decisions. It sounds weird, but I feel like it's Lamar Jackson like trying to play like a Patrick Mahomes, right? Like these throws that like are not smart, are not highly probable to be completed, that somehow Patrick Mahomes can usually accomplish. It looks like Lamar Jackson's trying to pull that off, and it's just kind of not working.
No, it's not. The defense has been kind of on a backslide a little bit. They haven't looked particularly good, obviously losing some key pieces, and he doesn't have the run game outside of basically himself. Devonta Freeman is a shell of his former self and has been fine. But
Their backfield average age is like 45.
Yeah, and honestly, it feels like every time he throws it to Mark Andrews, it's a toss-up whether or not it's going to be a touchdown or an interception, which is very bizarre.
They lost that game on going for a 2-point conversion. Was that what it was? Why can't I remember?
Oh, is that the one where?
So it was supposed to be, if they kicked a field goal, it was going to go into overtime, because it was a 1-point game. So the Ravens Steelers game was, the score ended up being 20-19, and they decided to let Lamar Jackson go for a 2-point conversion to win the game right out rather than tie it up and go to overtime. Yeah. They said they were kind of just really depleted. Their defense was really depleted. That game wore them out. They didn't like their chances going to overtime. So they chose to let Lamar Jackson throw it. He threw it to Mark Andrews, a really quick like snap and throw, and Mark Andrews bobbled it and dropped it, and they lost.
And not to a good team either. The Steelers haven't been very good. No. I mean, like
Steelers have been bad. You can say it.
The Ravens are ahead in this division. It doesn't feel like they should be. And I mean, I know they beat the Browns 16-10 like 2 weeks ago, but I mean, I don't know if you remember that game, but like it was a very close game. It came down to the last possession. Lamar Jackson absolutely tried to lose them that game.
Sunday Night Football, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let me look. Yeah, I think it was Sunday Night Football.
The Browns were wearing like throwback uniforms.
Yeah. The Browns have obviously had a very up and down season. Some really big wins, some really tough, big losses as well. Baker Mayfield has been extremely banged up, but it seems like, coming off the bye, I think they're going to be ready for this Ravens team, and I kind of expect the Browns to win it because unless Lamar Jackson can get back to being himself and trying to play within himself as opposed to trying to win the game on every snap, I don't know how the Ravens are going to win this with Lamar actively losing them the game. Yeah,
I think the Ravens might win it, and it just comes down to the Browns' game plan here. And there's, a couple of ways they can beat Lamar Jackson, and if they can like successfully put pressure on him and stop the run, then I think that's the Browns' best chance at winning. But yeah, I don't know. This game is gonna be weird. It's a division game. Who really knows? I don't. You pretty much said everything I've been thinking, so I don't have too much more to add. But I don't know. I have been expecting a little bit more out of Lamar Jackson, and I'm really hoping he can show me a little bit more against a Browns team that really is not that great.
I think the best chance the Ravens have of winning this game is Lamar Jackson trying not to win them the game, which sounds really stupid.
That's smart. No, I like that. I like the way you said that.
Thanks. I do something right every now and then.
I know. Smart. I like that.
Thank you. People call me smart all the time.
I know.
I handle it really well. I'm very humble. Moving on, we have the 9-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers playing Tom Brady's old friend, the Buffalo Bills. For some reason, saying Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Buffalo Bills was very odd in my.
So many B's.
Yeah, and I also said Tom Brady, Buffalo Bills. Weird. I don't know why it's tripping me up. It's like when you start saying a word so many times that you really start to think. Like yeah, that's kind of what I'm going through right now, and I'm talking through it in a hope to get back to some sense of normalcy before the end of this.
You're having those days that I have every once in a while, where
yeah, most of my days are them. I just tend to talk through them, which is very healthy. But the Bills are coming off of that loss that we talked about earlier to the Patriots, not run by Tom Brady, 14-10. And Tampa is coming off of a huge win where Tom Brady once again just destroyed the Atlanta Falcons 30-17. Yeah, the Buffalo defense has been good most of the season. Did not look at. I think they haven't looked as good, really. I feel like since Jonathan Taylor ate them up for 5 touchdowns. And meanwhile, Tom Brady has been on an absolute tear all season. But this holds really big and really interesting repercussions for both teams. I mean, it's obviously they're in separate conferences, but it's really important for both of these teams going into this final stretch of the season to get a win here.
Yeah. The Buccaneers are 3-point favorites. The over-under for this game, I'm expecting it is 53.5, so high, but you have two pretty offense-heavy teams. But yeah, huge implications. The Bucs are close to clinching their spot in playoffs. The Bills are ahead of a Miami team that's on a hot streak and a Patriots team that looks like they're going to win that division and maybe even the AFC. So if the Bills can't get their mojo back, they might fall to third place in this division. So that would nix any playoff hopes that they have. As of right now, the Bills are only sitting in a wild card spot. So
it's not, it's not like sitting pretty in a wild card.
No.
Spot. The Chargers, the Bengals are both 7-5 as well, with the Colts right behind them at 7-6. There's a very real chance that if they lose this game, they're out of the playoffs.
Yep, exactly. So which is tough. That's why they needed that one against the Patriots, like we talked about earlier, because they were going into this game against the Bucs, and that's a tough game to be a need-to-win game.
Yeah, especially because of Tom Brady's history with the Buffalo Bills. Obviously, he's not in the AFC East anymore, but he is very familiar with those Bills, and he has a couple of wins against them in his 20-year dominance of that division, which is just weird to think about. He's very old.
Yeah.
Tom Brady is a very, very old man when it comes to football. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like there's as much to say in this game. Sean McDermott did not take to losing to Bill Belichick again very well. Josh Allen has looked fine, but not like the Josh Allen that we saw last year. And the offense as a whole, I mean, we've talked about it a few times. They just haven't looked like they fully understand what's going on. And the defense, which I think was holding them together earlier in the season, has just begun to fall apart. Obviously, part of that is due to losing Tre'Davious White, their all-pro cornerback. But I don't know how. And
that's going to be the key to stopping the Bucs. Like having a the cornerback's going to be a keystone of if the Bills win, because so they have you threw me off. There are so many weapons.
Well, that's my favorite state.
Maybe it was a key. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Are you trying to say cornerstone?
Cornerstone. There we go.
I thought you were trying to say that, but you said keystone. I'm like,
yeah, I know. It kind of really got all mixed up. You're not being able to speak is wearing off on me.
I'm coming at you from the Keystone State because we were in the middle of the 13 colonies.
The Buccaneers have so many weapons that the cornerbacks are going to need to really outperform themselves. One of the stats here too is that I like is Tom Brady's passer rating falls about 40 points when he's in a clean pocket versus under pressure. Tom Brady's passer rating in a clean pocket is 110.6, and his passer rating under pressure is 73.4. So that's a huge difference. Josh Allen's is about 30 points, not 40. So Josh Allen's, I believe, is third, not even 104.3 in a clean pocket and 81 under pressure. So that's going to be a key for the Bills is to really, really pressure the Tom Brady and not allow him to have a clean pocket. I mean, that's been Tom Brady forever, but
yeah, I was going to say, we've seen that for years. The best way to beat Tom Brady is to just hit him.
Yeah.
Endlessly hit him. That's how.
And then he gets upset. Like Tom Brady does get upset. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes,
you could see him on the sidelines.
We know.
Yes. So then you hit him, you make him not have a clean pocket. He's going to be pissed. He's going to get mad at the offensive line. You got to play mind games with them a little bit. I mean, they're the best team in football, so you need to really play mind games with them. And I don't know. This Bills defense is what's tripping me up. Like the Bills, if you asked me a couple weeks ago, I think the Bills would be able to win this game, but the Bills defense
They haven't been
not
playing
performing
like it.
lately. No,
And
not lately.
on the other side of things, this is important for the Bucks as well, because
Yeah.
right now, obviously, the Cardinals are top of the NFC at 10-2. The Packers and the
Mhm.
Bucks are both 9-3. I don't know who technically is above in the rankings right now in terms of who would be the 2 seed versus the 3 seed, but the Bucks want that. They want that first round bye, and to get the first round bye nowadays, you have to come in first, because only the first seed
Yeah.
is the only one that's going to get that first round bye. And the Cardinals have they still have the Rams this week, which, spoiler alert, that's the next game we're going to talk about. But the Bucks are going to try and keep up with the Cardinals so they can get that 1 seed. And this is going to be a big game for them to stay where they want to atop the NFC.
Yep.
Because they're not really playing to win their division anymore. Yeah, they're done. It's fine.
Yeah.
They won their division.
Yep, they want that bye, and I don't blame them. But yeah, that I think that pretty much sums it. What do you think is Tampa Bay's best game plan to beat the Bills?
I think you just let Tom Brady sling it. Obviously, the Bills have had a rough couple of weeks against the run. I think there's still a better run defense than they are pass defense at the moment. So I'd be trying to pass against them. The loss of Tre'Davious White is huge. You've got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, not to mention, some of the younger guys. Not Antonio Brown, but you've got Rob Gronkowski, who legitimately looks like one of the best tight ends in football right now, which is crazy. And honestly, Leonard Fournette is somehow becoming a pass catching weapon again. So I don't know why you'd go away.
Lenny.
Yeah, he's for Tutty Lenny.
I know.
I don't know why you would go
Leonard
away from
Fournette.
passing the ball. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Leonard Fournette. I don't know why you'd go away from passing the ball. You've got the GOAT. Just let him sling it. Let him win the game for you. That's what he's done all season. Just let him keep doing it.
And their cornerbacks are banged up, so.
Exactly.
That's playing. All right.
But,
on to the last game. We have I believe it's Monday Night Football matchup, Rams versus Cardinals. The Rams are 8-4. The Cardinals are 10-2. The Rams are coming off of a win against the Jags with a score of 37-17. Cardinals beat the Bears 33-22, and the Cardinals are 2.5-point favorites in this game.
yeah, this is huge. This is, I believe, their second time they've played.
This is their second time playing.
Yes. And I'm remembering correctly when I thought that the Cardinals won the first time, right?
Yes, they became the only undefeated team left, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right. This is massive because again, it feels like this game is probably going to decide the division. Because if the Cardinals can win this one, they'll move to 11-2. They'll have swept the Rams. Because they did win 37-20 earlier in the season. I believe the Cardinals they've swept the 49ers, and they have beaten the Seahawks with one game remaining against the Seahawks in week 18 of the season. So if they beat the Rams here,
if they beat the Rams of the Seahawks, they would have won every division game.
Yeah, so they have 2 division games left, and they can go 6-0 in the division. If you do that, you're probably going to win your division.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really feels like if the Cardinals can win this matchup, the rest of their season isn't really that bad. I'd say the hardest game, they have the Lions, the Colts, the Cowboys, and the Seahawks. Honestly, the toughest game they have coming up might be on Christmas Day against the Colts, who have been on a bit of a hot streak to work themselves back into the playoff race and have a very good running back in Jonathan Taylor. So, this is huge for the Cardinals. They can get very close to securing the 1 seed in the NFC if they can win this game. They'll probably lock up the division, almost for sure. And for a team that has been dealing with some injuries all season to still be 10-2, that would be huge for them to get that first round bye and hopefully get even more healthy going into that second round of the playoffs. Obviously, we're thinking about a month in advance right now, but Kyler's been playing outstanding football when he's been active. He threw, there was a crazy stat. The Cardinals put up how many points last week? They put up 33 points.
Yeah.
Kyler, meanwhile, was 11 for 15, threw for 123 yards, but passed for 2 touchdowns and ran for 2 touchdowns. Like, that's a ridiculous stat line and an insanely efficient stat line. He's playing MVP level football when he's healthy. And if he can, put the nail in the coffin for the Rams' chances of winning this division, then that's just going to be huge for the Cardinals moving forward. And it's going to be a massive spike in just confidence for this young and slightly, less experienced team when it comes to the playoffs as compared to the Rams, who have been to the Super Bowl in the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I think one of my favorite stats from PFF this week for our game previews was that Matt Stafford's turnover worthy percent plays is 3.12 to Kyler Murray's 1.52, so it's nearly double. I think that's going to play a huge factor. I think this is just going to be a huge offense game. You have 2 top 10 power ranked offenses, or power ranked teams. And so that's the Rams being 9th and the Cardinals being 4th. And for offense, they're 12th and 7th respectively. So yeah, I think this is probably just going to be a big offense game. I think for the Rams, it comes down to trusting that, front 5, whatever it is, So I think for them, it's going to be pressuring Kyler Murray, but also keeping him contained, right? Because I think that's even bigger than the pressure, is that keeping Kyler Murray contained is to stop him from having these runs, having these rushing touchdowns, especially forcing him to throw. And I'm not saying he's a bad thrower. I'm just saying he is really good on the run and he can evade tackles like no one's business. So
I mean, he's been an incredible passer this season. So
he has 100%, but I still think that you might stop a little bit more scoring, especially in the red zone, at least keeping Kyler Murray contained a lot in the red zone. I think would probably be my one of my big focuses.
Yeah, and the Rams, honestly, they need this. They need us to get back on schedule. The last 5 weeks have been rough to them. 4 weeks, sorry. They did win against the Jaguars last week in big fashion. Not too surprising, but leading up to that, there was a 3-game skid, losing to the Packers in prime time in kind of just embarrassing fashion. It never really felt like they were in that game, even though it was a 36-28 final score, getting destroyed by the Niners 31-10, and then losing to the Titans 28-16, an undermanned Titans team. If I'm remembering correctly, that was one of the first weeks without Derrick Henry. Yeah. And it might have even been without Julio and A.J. Brown as well. But
I think A.J. Brown was there. I don't think Julio
I think you're right. But yeah, this Rams team needs to figure out their stuff. Matt Stafford needs to get back on track to doing what he was doing earlier in the season. It sounds like he's a little bit banged up, but they need him if they're going to compete. The offense has not been the same without Robert Woods, unfortunately. Darrell Henderson remains a little bit banged up. He didn't play much last week with Sony Michel carrying the majority of the load on the offensive side of the ball, running it. And I think they really just need to hope they can get Odell Beckham going, because they need that secondary weapon on offense outside of Cooper Kupp to take some of the pressure off of Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and that connection.
Tyler Higbee is no Robert Woods.
That is very true. Odell Beckham Jr. is probably their best bet at replacing that production, and so far, he's been fine. He's still working his way into the offense, and I think we're kind of finally seeing how important Robert Woods was to that offensive game plan on a weekly basis, even when he wasn't putting up the numbers that Cooper Kupp was this season.
Yeah, definitely. The Rams talk a lot about they love to run 3 and 4 wide, and that just hasn't been working since Robert Woods left. It opened up the field more. It allowed for multiple threats. You allowed Cooper Kupp in the slot. You had Robert Woods deep. So they were able to expand the field and push downfield. And like I said, Tyler Higbee has not been looking great. So he's had a couple of drop passes. That really bad one against San Francisco that led to a turnover. Yeah. So I think you're right. I think getting OBJ highly involved in kind of trying to take over for Robert Woods, maybe forcing him a little bit. It also helps open up the coverage. Cooper Kupp, since Robert Woods has been out, has been in double coverage so much. So that's not going to help. You're going to have no weapons. Matt Stafford's going to try and force those throws, which is why his turnover percent of worthy. What am I trying to say? The plays
turnover worthy percent.
Yes, there we go. Passes, plays, whatever it is. That's hard.
You
to
threw
say.
me off. I would have been fine, but then I was trying to piece
say.
together what you were saying.
That's why that number has gone up. So yeah, and I think Matt Stafford has not looked the best either. Matt Stafford looked great at the beginning of the season. He looked like he was playing MVP worthy football. And that stretch of games you were just mentioning, he has not looked good at all.
No, he hasn't. And the Rams aren't going to win games if he's not looking good. No. There's a reason that they viewed him as an upgrade over Jared Goff, and there's a reason that in the beginning of the season they looked like the best team in football. Yep. But yeah, I mean, that does it for our Week 14 preview. The games that we're most looking forward to, the ones that we think are going to have huge implications for the season going forward, and especially for that playoff push in these last 4 weeks, I guess. Wow. But yeah, that's or I guess 5 weeks. But that is where we're at. Ashley, any parting knowledge, advice, facts, life lessons?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot.
Anything?
Life lessons? I don't know. I really don't have any.
That's really good. I think that
just wing it. Fake it till you make it.
That's not it. That's
why. I think that's a good one.
Not it. I do have a fun fact here that I'm trying to find. So Sunday was the 6th time that Nick Sirianni's Eagles offense has scored 30 or more points this season. Pretty impressive. What's more impressive is 5 more times than the Giants have scored 30 points in the past 2 years.
Yes, it is. 100%.
So, that's how I'm going to end this. My name's Michael. You can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. I do Under the Wire on the Fantasy Football Chat Discord every Sunday morning from 11 to 1 Eastern Standard Time, where me and Kyle Larson go through fantasy football start sits, preview some of the games for your fantasy teams, and you can also find me producing the Undrafted podcast hosted by @Dino Game Theory, Jax Falcone on Twitter.
You were on the last episode.
I was on the last episode, and I also produced it. I'm a madman. Ashley, where can they find you?
You can find me at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and at the beginning of Ashley. All of my content was with the Undroppables, so you could find some of my content on their website. That's about it. You could the Undroppables on Twitter. It's at the on TikTok at the Undroppables. That's one of my favorite content that I put out. Other than this. So yeah, that's where you can find me. If you want to interact with me, Twitter is the best place. I dropped my phone. But yeah, that's loud. It was really loud. It dropped on the table. But yeah, that's about it. I think you guys, you can find both of us here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live on Twitter, on YouTube. I believe that's the only 2 places, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, perfect. And anywhere you listen to your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. That's about it. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us on another Wednesday night. We look forward to seeing you guys next week, putting out some more content this week, and that's about it. Thanks, guys.
Have a wonderful